Welcome back to WordPress 101. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the block editor in WordPress, which is also known as Gutenberg. Let's create a new post, and I'll show you around. To get started, first add a title. Next, you can either start typing some text to create a new paragraph block, or type a / to choose from a list of the most common blocks. Or, if you prefer, click the plus icon, either next to the current block or in the top left-hand corner, to choose a new block. If you know which type of block you'd like to add, you can quickly search for it here. And below the search field is a list of the most commonly used blocks, like paragraphs of text, headings, lists, and more. Hovering over a block icon will reveal a description and a preview of that block. And as we scroll down, we'll find all the other blocks that are currently available to us, categorized into individual sections to make it easier to locate blocks based on their functionality. For example, there are media blocks like images and photo galleries, audio, and video. Design blocks like buttons, columns, and groups, and even widgets to add custom HTML or even a list of your latest blog posts. And finally, you can embed content from a whole list of services like YouTube videos and a whole lot more. Now, there are dozens of third-party plugins that add new blocks to this list, so you may see more blocks listed here beyond the default blocks provided by WordPress itself. At the top, you'll also find a tab for block patterns. These are groups of blocks that have been combined into pre-built design elements or layouts you can add to any page or post. To add a block or a pattern, just select it from the list and it will be inserted into the page. Then, you can easily replace the placeholder content with your own. Selecting any of the blocks within the group reveals a toolbar at the top. Now, the toolbar will change depending on the type of block we're currently editing. In the paragraph block, it reveals the usual formatting options for aligning text to the left, center, or right, as well as making highlighted text bold, italics, or converting it into a link. On the left-hand side of the toolbar, you can click this button to convert a block into a different type of block, or to change its style. For example, I'll convert this paragraph into a quote, and then select the button again to select a different style for this block. You can also use the arrow buttons in the toolbar to quickly move a block up or down the page. To view even more options for a block, select the button containing 3 dots on the right-hand side of the toolbar. From this menu, you can open the block settings tray, which contains additional options for styling the block. Again, these options will change depending on the type of block we're editing. For this heading block, there are options for changing the size of the typography, choosing a different color for the text, or even the background color. You can also easily copy or duplicate a block, insert a block above or below this one, move it to a different position on the page, or even edit the HTML for this block. And if you've customized a block, you may want to add it to a list of reusable blocks, or create a group of blocks to reuse again elsewhere. And finally, you can delete or remove the block. Notice that there are also keyboard shortcuts for each of these functions, which will help you work even more quickly with a little bit of practice. In the top right-hand corner, the Settings button will hide or show the individual options for the block you've selected, or the settings for the page or the document itself. Now, we'll cover these settings in more detail in a later video, so for now, just remember that these settings can be found here. And speaking of important settings, in the top right-hand corner, click the button containing 3 dots to reveal some of the most important settings for the editor. By default, WordPress displays the block editor in full screen mode, which hides the administration toolbar, which normally appears across the top of the page, and the main navigation menu on the left-hand side. This helps you to focus on just your content and making the best use of your screen space. You can choose to view all the block formatting tools in a single bar across the top of the page rather than in context above the block you're editing. And Spotlight mode helps you focus on just the block that's currently selected. You can also switch from the visual editor to the code editor, which reveals the code used by WordPress to create and identify these blocks within Gutenberg. Under the Tools section, you'll find the Block Manager, which allows you to hide or show any available block from the list that appears whenever you add a new block. You can also manage any reusable blocks you've created, view a really handy list of keyboard shortcuts, or view the welcome guide. And you can copy all the content from this page, which can be really helpful if you've created a complex layout with lots of custom blocks. And finally, in the Options section, you can enable an automated test to check for errors before you publish a page or post. And you can enable the Most Used Blocks, which adds a new section to the block library containing the blocks you use most often. There are other options for hiding document settings panels that you don't use very often, and enabling advanced panels for custom fields, if your site makes use of them. Now, when you create a long page with lots of different types of blocks, it can become difficult to find a particular block to edit. So the block navigation button at the top will show you an outline view of all the blocks used in your page, allowing you to easily jump right to a particular block or group and make changes. And the Content Structure button will show you at a glance how many words, headings, paragraphs, and blocks are currently being used on this page, as well as an outline view of your document. And of course, there are handy buttons to help you undo and redo any changes you might have made. And finally, there are two important tools you can use to work with blocks. The Edit tool allows you to edit the contents of a particular block, while the Select tool is for selecting an entire block or group of blocks. The icon at the top changes depending on which tool you have selected. All right, now that you're familiar with the block editor, it's time to start creating some content for our site. So in the next few videos, we'll explore how to build custom layouts and create more compelling content using the default blocks included in WordPress.